The wooden wheels groaned, a rhythmic, splintering protest against the uneven dirt path. Inside the cramped wagon, Donna, Amelia, Vamp, Poppy, and Kava pressed their shoulders together, bracing against every jolt. Kava pulled a weathered parchment from a leather roll and spread it across their knees. 5 fingers traced the ink lines. As the wagon crested a low ridge, the wind shifted. The scent of dust vanished, replaced by a sudden, cloying sweetness. Amelia leaned toward the edge of the wagon, her eyes scanning the horizon. The dirt path smoothed into a pale crystalline surface. The trees lining the road leaned inward, their branches heavy with a strange, sugary bloom. Poppy reached out, catching a drifting petal. They were close. The wagon slowed as the gates of Valera loomed ahead, shimmering in the distance. The team sat upright, hands moving to their gear, waiting for the first sight of the throne room. The wagon stopped, and the team stepped onto the polished floor of the throne room. The air here was thick, heavy, with the scent of roses. Queen Coco sat at the far end of the hall. She did not rise as they approached. She watched them, her gaze sharp, while the light caught the deep red stones embedded in her crown. She stood, the sound of her movement echoing against the high walls. With a single, deliberate gesture, she pointed toward the distant horizon. She spoke of a lost gemstone, the heart of the kingdom, now missing from the central pedestal. The team listened as she detailed the location, the chocolate forest. It was a place where the terrain itself was a trap. The stakes were clear. If the gem was not recovered, the kingdom would fracture. Queen Coco lowered her hand, her expression unyielding. Donna nodded, her grip tightening on her staff. The others followed, their faces set with resolve. They turned and walked out of the hall, the heavy doors swinging shut behind them with a final, resonant thud. They moved through the outer courtyards, toward the edge of the known world. The transition was abrupt. The manicured paths of the capital gave way to a wall of dense, dark vegetation. At the forest edge, 2 figures stepped from the undergrowth. Colina and Celera stood waiting, their blades already drawn. They joined the group without a word, their eyes scanning the canopy. The team pushed forward, crossing the threshold. The ground beneath their boots was not earth, but a thick, yielding substance that clung to their souls with every step. The trees were massive, gnarled pillars of hardened fudge, their surfaces slick and dark. Donna reached out to steady herself. The air grew heavy, smelling of burnt cocoa and something metallic. Poppy stumbled as a low branch snagged her shoulder. They moved in a tight formation, the silence of the woods pressing in. Every snap of a twig sounded like a bone breaking. The team halted, sensing the environment shifting. The forest was not merely a place. It felt like a trap waiting to close. The canopy overhead suddenly vanished. A massive, jagged shadow swept across the forest floor, swallowing the dim light and plunging the team into near-total darkness. The air pressure shifted, pushing against their eardrums with a sudden, violent force. Above them, the thick branches of the fudge trees snapped like dry kindling. A colossal weight slammed into the earth just yards ahead, the impact sending a shockwave through the ground that knocked the team off their feet. Dirt and fragments of hardened cocoa sprayed into the air, stinging their skin. As the dust began to settle, the source of the tremor revealed itself. Valen stood in the center of the clearing, his massive form dwarfing the surrounding trees. The ground beneath his feet groaned under the immense pressure. He let out a low, vibrating growl that rattled the very air they breathed. The team scrambled backward, their boots sliding on the slick, sugary mud. Donna scrambled to her feet, her staff glowing with a faint, steady light. Poppy reached for her pouch, her fingers trembling as she prepared for a fight. Amelia and the others fanned out, creating a wide arc around the beast. They stood frozen, muscles coiled, waiting for the dragon to make the first move. Donna swung her staff, carving a sharp arc through the air that summoned a violent gust of wind. Poppy didn't wait. She reached into her pouch and fired a stream of golden coins, each one whistling like a projectile as it struck the dragon's hide. The team moved in a frantic, coordinated dance, desperate to overwhelm the beast. Then, the impossible happened. Valen stopped. He did not roar or retaliate. Instead, he lowered his massive head until his snout rested inches from the churned-up earth. A translucent, glowing interface flickered into existence in the empty space between the team and the dragon. The text pulsed with a soft, rhythmic light, displaying a single, urgent query. Accept Valen into the party. The team froze, their weapons still raised, their breathing ragged. One by one, they tapped the glowing yes on the interface. The light flared, then vanished. The tension in the clearing snapped. Valen let out a long, low huff of air and stepped forward, nudging his heavy head against Dona's shoulder. The forest floor grew increasingly unstable as they pushed deeper into the heart of the woods. The air here felt heavy, thick with a dark, pulsing energy that made the skin prickle. Valen moved ahead, his heavy claws sinking deep into the soft, fudge-like soil with every step. Suddenly, the ground beneath them buckled. A series of deep fissures raced outward from the center of the path, snapping the roots of the trees like brittle glass. The team scattered, diving for cover as the earth exploded upward. From the crater, a colossal figure hauled itself into the light. It was a mass of hardened cocoa and shifting viscous syrup, its limbs thick and dripping with molten liquid. The creature stood nearly twice the height of the surrounding trees, its mass blocking out the remaining light. It let out a sound like grinding stone and boiling sugar. The team scrambled to find footing on the uneven terrain, their weapons drawn and ready. Dona planted her staff firmly, the base sinking into the mud as she braced for the impact. Poppy retreated to a high ridge, her eyes locked on the creature's shifting joints. Amelia and the others moved in a tight formation, circling the perimeter of the cavernous hole. The golem swung a massive, dripping arm, clearing a path through the dense trees with a single, devastating sweep. The fight for survival had begun again. Vamp did not hesitate. With a sharp leap, they vaulted onto the dragon's back, fingers locking into the thick, hardened scales. As they gripped the beast, a surge of energy ignited between them, wrapping both rider and dragon in a single, radiant aura. Valen beat his massive wings, the force of the downdraft snapping nearby branches, and launched himself into the air. From the ground, Amelia moved with precise, rhythmic steps. She swung her blade in wide, sweeping arcs, unleashing waves of pineapple-infused energy. Each slash struck the golem's chest with a sound of cracking stone, carving deep, glowing grooves into its torso. Dona seized the opening. She slammed her staff into the earth, channeling every ounce of her focus into a concentrated whirlwind. The vortex roared to life, spiraling upward with enough force to lift the massive creature off its feet. Above, Vamp and Valen dove, their combined aura trailing like a comet behind them. The golem was now suspended and vulnerable. The final blow landed with the force of a thunderclap. Vamp and the dragon slammed into the golem's chest just as the whirlwind reached its peak intensity. The impact sent a shockwave through the forest, vibrating the very ground beneath their feet. The golem did not fall. It disintegrated, its massive, syrup-laden limbs fractured into thousands of jagged, hardened pieces that rained down like a dark, sticky hail. The forest floor was instantly buried under a thick layer of cocoa debris. The team stood in the sudden, ringing silence, breathing hard as the dust began to settle. Dona stepped forward, her staff clicking against the hardened fragments. She pushed aside a heavy, jagged chunk of the golem's shoulder, revealing a faint, pulsing light beneath the wreckage. There, embedded in the center of the largest mass, lay the gemstone. It glowed with a steady, rhythmic pulse that seemed to beat in time with their own hearts. Poppy reached down, her fingers brushing the cool, smooth surface of the stone as she pulled it free from the sticky mess. The energy of the forest shifted instantly. The threat was gone. The path back to the kingdom lay open, and the weight of the quest finally began to lift from their shoulders. The journey back was a blur of speed and adrenaline. They crossed the forest edge and entered the town square, where Queen Coco stood waiting by the central pedestal, her gaze locked onto the glowing gemstone in Poppy's hand. The team approached, their boots scuffing against the cracked, gray stone of the square. Without a word, Poppy stepped forward and placed the gem into the waiting slot. It clicked into place with a resonance that vibrated through the ground. For a heartbeat, there was total silence. Then, a pulse of soft pink light erupted from the pedestal. It surged outward like a tide, washing over the town square. Where the light touched, the cracks in the pavement sealed instantly, the stone knitting itself back together with a faint melodic hum. The gray, withered buildings regained their color, turning vibrant and warm. The air, previously stagnant, filled with the scent of roses and sugar, thick and sweet. The light rippled through the streets, climbing the walls and illuminating the windows until the entire kingdom glowed with a steady, peaceful radiance. People emerged from their homes, watching as the shadows retreated into the corners of the world. The team stood together in the center of the square, watching the transformation complete. The weight of the quest dissolved, leaving behind a quiet, profound sense of order. The kingdom was whole again, the pulse of the gemstone beating in harmony with the city itself. They had succeeded, and the peace they had fought for settled over the land, vibrant and unbroken.